Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Marvel Multiverse role-playing game Iron Snow campaign, and we are in Season 1, Episode 1, The Tales of Green Goblin. Green Goblin is a hero. Now, that may change because Green Goblin was, Norman Osborn was created in a lab accident, right? And it exposed him to a lot of chemicals, and he is struggling with keeping control of himself at all times. But at this point, we pick it up, and Green Goblin has just had his first year zero conflict with thugs who were about to harm a woman in a back alley, and he just, gave them the 1-2 and killed both of them accidentally. He got a fantastic success on the Marvel dice, doubled his, and it turns out, on a regular hit, he's doing 29 points of damage, right? And if that doubles, you're talking close to 60, right? These were regular average civilians, which only take 10 hit points each, right? That's like, whoa, right? So he ended up killing both of them. And so at this point, he actually flies back to Oscorp, and he takes a minute, he settles himself, and then he goes back out on patrol, right? So once he goes back out on patrol, he sees that night. He goes right back out that night. He's flying on his goblin glider, and the whole an entire street just kind of lights up, right, with phones, right? So there's probably hundreds of people on the street, and about 1 out of 3 of them get some kind of text, and they hit a link, and they're starting to watch a video. So something's happening. So Green Goblin is flying about 5 or 6 stories above the street, keeping a low profile, and he sees all these people, watching this video. So he hovers, and then he uses his Green Goblin mask to, he has magnified lenses in his goggles, and he has amplified hearing with these communicators that he wears in his ears, right? So he uses tech, and he's rich. He's like Batman, right? So really anything Batman could own, Norman Osborn could own. He has the same level. So basically he's gliding above, but he watches the video, right? And so I explained to the gold player, here's what you're seeing on the video, all right? So it cuts to Blade, right? And one of the other things I really like is I'll show a picture of the hero and say, do you know who this person is? And he's like, that's Blade, right? And what's really fascinating is there's over 1,000 people. That's not a joke. There's literally 1,000 characters in Marvel, and not everybody knows them all. I don't know them all. The player doesn't, but he knew Blade, right? And so Blade's walking down the street in Las Vegas on the video. All this is happening in the video, but I'm going to do exactly what I did for the gold player. I'm just going to tell it straight, like it's happening, okay? So Blade rolls out, actually comes out of, Blade is walking down the street, and Elektra stumbles out of one of the casinos, right? And she goes, Blade, right? And it, kind of yells his name out, and she goes, I'm so sick of hearing about you and your skill with a sword. She goes, I don't want to hear another word about you. Those swords aren't even real, right? And now she is carrying dual katanas, right? So she pulls off one of her katanas off the back, and she says, this is Takahashi Ono's. This is 375 years old, right? She goes, this is a real Blade. And then she kind of stumbles forward, and Blade realizes she's drunk, right? And Blade goes, hey, you had a couple too many, Elektra. It's okay. I'm sorry you're having to hear my name in the streets, but it's okay. And she's like, it's not okay. She pulls out the other sword, right? And she goes, this Blade, all right? And then she names another famous, swords maker from Japan, 400 years old, right? She goes, forged with thousands of folds. This is a real Blade, right? She's like, your stuff is alloy junk made a year ago, right? Like, she's like, you don't have the right to be talked of as a swordsman. You don't even own a real sword, right? And Blade's like, ho, 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 ho. You know, he's like, these aren't junk. This is adamantium, right? Like, he taps the sword on his head. She goes, no, I'm not going to hear another word of it. So she is drunk, right? And she's like, I'm not going to hear anymore because I'm going to defeat you right now, right? And he's like, no, we can't do that, right? He's like, Elektra, settle down. This is not going to end well, right? And she's like, that's it, right? She's like, and then she puts both her swords back, and she says, get ready. She says, get ready to see real swords at work. And Blade's like, no, we can't fight, right? One of us is going to drop. We cannot do this, Elektra, right? And she's like, I know. And she goes, I know you're not going to do the right thing because you're not a real swordsman, right? And at this point, Blade's like, Elektra, one last time, don't do this. And she's like, and she then at that point, like, literally gets into stance and carefully moves back 10 feet. And Blade's like, are you serious? And she's like, as a heart attack, right? So Blade's like, okay, right? And he just kind of strunches down, and he takes his stance and moves 10 feet back. And then in an instant, the two of them run straight at each other, right? Just like a classic samurai duel. There's a flash of steel. There's a shing. And at that point, Elektra drops to the ground, right? And only on like slow-mo replay can it be seen that Blade hit her right in the heart, and his adamantium blade was so wicked sharp that it just slid it just cut half of her body in half, right? So she had about he went straight to the heart, and she had about a 6-7 inch cut, and because it was straight to the heart, it just kills her, right? So she dies. So Blade has killed Elektra, okay? And this is in like the first 10 minutes of the game, about 20 minutes of the campaign, right? And I'm like, okay, everybody is watching this, right? And so the gold player is like, oh my gosh, Elektra is New York, right? And he says, I need to go get her body, right? And I'm going to bring it back to New York. And I'm like, ooh, nice, right? So I didn't know if, this would just be a news story that he would see, but they both do live in New York, right? And actually she has a lot of history with Daredevil, who was also based in New York. And of course, Norman Osborn has history with Spider-Man. Now, he doesn't have that history yet because Norman Osborn is like brand new. And so that's what's happening at this point. And at that point, Norman Osborn decides to go to Las Vegas, right, to get Elektra's body, return it to New York, and bury her in New York. And that's where I'm going to cut it off here. We're still in season 1, episode 1. It's an honor to share this with you. Thank you so much for listening. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion on Marvel Multiverse role-playing game Iron Snow Campaign Season 1, Episode 1. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.